April 30th, 1924.
Where were you
The year,
born?
born in Sioux City, Iowa. Stayed there for 5 years. My father had a business of harness business, sewing up for the horse and buggy days. Well, then Henry Ford come along, made the Ford car, but he got rid of the horse and buggy and bought a Ford. So in 1929, I came out to California on a Greyhound bus with my folks, my parents. Graduated from Redondo High School in 1943. The war broke out in 1941, December 7th. And they were going to, as soon as I turned 18, they were going to draft me and put me in the Army. So I grew up in Manhattan Beach by the ocean, and I surfed a lot, swam a lot. So I liked the water. So I went down and enlisted in the Navy when I turned 18. And anyhow, so they asked me what I liked in life, and I told them I wanted to be an aerial photographer. And they said, aerial photographer, there's only two in the whole Navy. You know, that was big time stuff. So I said, well, I worked in a little restaurant on the beach in the summertime during summer school, or during summer. And I cooked hamburgers, and so they said, well, we're going to send you to cook and baker school in the Navy. So I went 4 months. Terminal Island had a Navy prison. It was a prison where Al Capone was there before us, but they had the sailors in there. If the sailors was AWOL, absent without leave, didn't return back to the base or ship or whatever, they put them in prison. But so I went to cook and baker school, 16 weeks at Terminal Island. Get off every night, Liberty. I got Liberty to come home every night. I just report there like going to work. So then after I graduated from the cook and baker school, they gave me a rating, put a rate on my arm, you know, raised in pay a little bit. And then they sent me to San Diego to the receiving station where all the troops come in from different states. We had people from all over, Florida and up in New York and everything. And then I cooked there. There was 12 cooks on a watch. We cooked for about 1,500 people coming in. They were going to be on the ships. And then I got sent to San Francisco, and on a troop ship, troop transport ship. They put me on a troop transport ship out of San Francisco. By being a ship's cook, I was up at 3:30 every morning that I had the duty. Of course, there was days I didn't have the duty. Other cooks came in and had their duty. So at 3:30 in the morning, I had to be in the galley starting breakfast for the troops that were coming through. And then, of course, I'd get off at, I think it was about 3 o'clock. It's been a long day in there, but the next day you'd maybe get off and have liberty. You could go in the shore and do what you had to. Anyway, it was in boot camp, which a lot of marching. They put us through. We only served 21 days in boot camp, which, if the war wasn't on, it would have been about 3 months you'd go to boot camp. But because the war was on, we spent 21 days. They sent us to the Marine gunnery place, and we shot the M1 rifles and marched and did calisthenics and push-ups. And they marched us from San Diego boot camp, which was down in town there, and we marched up to Balboa Park, which is 6 miles marching. And the one big guy, they had an ambulance following us, and he fell down, and put him in the ambulance. And they went by, waving at all of us guys, who were still marching. And he said, "Use your head, fall down." So, no, it was marching up to Balboa Park, and then they sent me to San Francisco or San Diego first before I went to San Francisco. Well, when I was here in the States, I went to the USO in Hollywood. I saw movie stars and danced with a couple. In those times, they had the military servicemen giving them donuts and cookies and coffee, and everybody that came in, they treated them like a king. So, they had dancing going on, and you had Cokes and all kinds of coffee, and I enjoyed that. I'd go up there once in a while. If I had the day off, I'd go to Hollywood. And then we was going to the Philippines, and halfway there, we got 200 miles north of Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and one of the kids on the ship got a acute appendicitis attack. So we had a doctor on the ship, but we changed course and went into Pearl Harbor to put the kid in the hospital. And when we got to Pearl Harbor, of course, all the ships were sunk in the harbor, and the bows were up, and the Arizona still had the mast on it. And then after we left Pearl, we went to Anahuac in the Pacific and met with a fleet of ships, cruisers and destroyers and battleships and everything. So everybody went different ways. Our troop transport, we had three convoy and troop transport ships with 2 destroyers escorting us, circling around the ship at all times. When, luckily, there was a Japanese sub that was following us, and I was in the last ship, and I happened to be out on deck one day, and the destroyers met right behind our ship, dropped depth charges, and the word came over that SSSS, sighted sub sank same. The 4 S's, sighted sub sank same, which I'm here today to talk about it. Otherwise, so anyhow, then I got in the Philippines, and after General MacArthur recaptured the islands, he went in to fight in the Philippine Islands, and they defeated him, and he had to leave, but he says, "I will return." And he came back with a bunch of soldiers, and anyhow, after he recaptured the Philippine Islands, that's when I went in there, and I had duty on one of the islands, and some of the islands we went by, where the trees were all bombed out, and houses were gone, and and that's where I spent my time in the Navy. Such a shock, because I was only 17, like this young man here, and you don't realize really what's going on until the news comes out and said ships are sunk all over the harbor. That it was a surprise attack on December 7th, 1941, 7 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. Japanese planes come in, bombed all the ships in the harbor, bombed the airplanes in the airfield, and because people were, Sunday morning, you didn't have duty, and probably, anyhow, there was 1,177 men still in their bunks on the Arizona, the battleship, the Arizona, and one of the bombs went down through the mast, or the where the smokestack is, you know, out of the ship, and went down four stairs down and exploded. And that's what killed all the people in the Arizona, USS Arizona, which is now a memorial. They've cut the top off and made a kind of a pier on top of it where you can go visit the Arizona. In fact, I went. It was the honor flight sent me there just at the 75th anniversary. I went to Pearl Harbor. They supplied the airplane for me, and also they sent me to Washington, D.C. to see the monuments and all the things. The government, the airplanes, or the Air Force, airplanes, because I went on different planes, gave me all of this, the honor system thinking. Well, so I'm been blessed and glad to be alive. That's hard to say. The hardest thing, I was very fortunate and blessed to not be right in the middle of the action. I saw a little of the action, but that was it, you know. But I was in the Philippines, and the cruiser, the Indianapolis, was sunk out there. We took the survivors on, you know. Excuse me for being emotional. Yeah, there was only 25 survivors out of 1,500 men. Their ship was sunk by a Japanese submarine, or torpedoed, and nobody knew that they were sunk for weeks. They were on life rafts, and they were burnt. Thank you. It's emotional. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing. We'll put them right here.
So, seeing all those people come in, we had on the island I was at, they had a hospital. So they put the survivors in the hospital. And nobody seemed to know that the Indianapolis was even sunk, because I guess the word was that the Indianapolis, I don't know how that went, but had fired on some of the Japanese planes and put them down, so they didn't want the people to know what ship killed their pilots, and that was why they kept it so quiet on the Indianapolis. But anyhow, so the war ended then right after that. So I got to come home. Then I happened to be, they had an outdoor movie at the island I was on. They weren't fighting then. We were safe then. And in the movie time, the word came over that the war ended. Wow, everyone went crazy, you know. And they all wanted to. We had they gave us a thing for 2 beers on Tuesday and 2 beers on Thursday, a ticket. So you could go down on those days and get two bottles of beer. Well, everybody ran for the beer hall, and they had to call out the shore patrol to keep the guys from breaking down the hall with the beer in it, you know, because everybody was thrilled to death to be the war over. That's all you knew is the war. So, yeah, good. I thought I'll get a discharge and be right on a ship to get home, but I'd be there to stay to cook to the people that were getting on the ship to come home. So I spent about 5 or 6 months after the war was over, before they discharged me. And then I came home on a ship landed in San Francisco Harbor Bay, and we thought, boy, we're gonna go get on shore and, you know, have a lot of fun because the war's over. And they dropped the anchor right below the Golden Gate Bridge. We sat there and watched the traffic go by the bridge, and they wouldn't let us off the ship till the next day. We were all crying, oh, we want to get on the shore, you know. And that's about the story of my life. And then, after the World War II was over, I went to work for Torrance Unified School District, and that was in 1948 when they came in from being Los Angeles County School, and I was under Dr. Hull, and I worked 35 years as a maintenance painter and Torrance bus driver. So, no, I don't know. I like fishing, and in between World War II and Korea, I worked on a fishing boat out of Newport Beach, and we made 2 trips into Mexico. We fished albacore and swordfish for the canneries, for Van Camp canneries. So I like fishing and I like being on the boat, and so that's probably what I would continue. Well, no, I always liked the United States because we had the best climate here, we had the ocean, we had everything we wanted. My dad, when he came out from Iowa, my mother, it was kind of hard for him to find a job right away. It was in 1929 when the Depression. Okay, he finally paid somebody $25 to work for the city of Manhattan Beach, driving truck. He found out this guy was gonna quit his job, and so he gave him $25 so that he'd know the exact time to be there to apply for the job. Well, he got the job, and he bought a house in Manhattan Beach for $1,500, $1,500, 3-bedroom in Manhattan Beach, and so I grew up at Manhattan pretty much. I went to the 8th grade in Manhattan Beach. Advice, well, be like you kids, get a good education where you can find a work, and hopefully we don't go to another war.